The theory behind numerology is that we believe that we've all had previous lifetimes and that within every lifetime we bring back with us a new soul's contract. So when we look at the date of birth and we do the calculations and we come up with the life path number or the soul signature number, it's a code that can be cracked and it tells us what we agreed to learn. Now, many people have some really, really difficult shit shows, for
Mm-hmm.
lives. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's just what it is. It can be very, very difficult. And the question might be, well, what the heck? Like, why would I have chosen this? Are you telling me I chose all this? Yeah, you did, right? Because it's about the lessons that we're intended to learn.
We've been talking a lot about overthinking lately on the podcast because so many women struggle with this, myself included. But here's what we're discovering: it's actually not overthinking that is the problem. That is simply the symptom. And if you're focused on the symptom, you never get to the root, which means it never changes. And you get stuck in overthinking and analysis paralysis. And you're constantly trying to stop the overthinking. You're meditating, you're journaling, you're getting into nature, you're doing all the things, but it's not stopping that hamster wheel in your head that will not shut up because you are not dealing with the root issue. And the root issue, what lies under the overthinking, is actually a lack of self trust. Because if you fully trusted yourself in every area of your life, you would listen to your intuition, you would act on it, and you would trust it. So we are going deep underneath the overthinking, the analysis paralysis, the fear, the anxiety, the doubt, the worry, the focusing on the problems. We are going deep under that. And today is no different. And the conversation I have with today's guest might challenge you a little more than you expect. And if you've been feeling that edge lately of like, I know that there's more here, I know there's more available, but I just can't get there. And I know if I could just get out of my head, get out of my patterns and my habits of self sabotage, that I would be able to break through. And I want you to listen carefully because I am opening something inside the Phoenix this month called The Edge. Because you are on the edge of a breakthrough, baby, and I am here to get it for you. And make sure to sign up right now because The Edge is happening all month long in March, and it's going to take you to that next level that you know is waiting for you. Which lines up beautifully with my conversation with my guest today, Anne Perry, who is an amazing numerologist and here to talk to us all things numbers. And why is that so important? And it really ties in with this idea of getting into your self-trust and getting out of your head and understanding yourself on such a deeper level. So today, Anne and I get into some really deep conversations around identity, patterns, and the perhaps uncomfortable idea that your life might not be as random as you think it is. We talk about whether your soul chose this life, why you keep repeating the same patterns, and what it actually takes to break them. And honestly, parts of this conversation might trigger you, and I say, bring it on, baby, because that is usually where the truth lies. Anne Perry is a professional numerologist and soul coach with over 20 years' experience helping people understand themselves, their patterns, and their relationships through the lens of numbers. She is the creator of Soul Signature Numerology and a #1 international best-selling author known for blending deep insight with a warm sense of humor. Anne helps women stop shrinking themselves in relationships and start living in alignment with who they truly are. Let's get right into this conversation with Anne Perry. Anne, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Val. I'm so grateful.
Let's get right into it. So, life path numbers. Can you tell us what the heck is a life path number?
The life path number is going to identify what you've agreed to come and learn. I'm a seven, so the sevens tend to be very analytical. We don't leave any stone unturned.
I think I'm a seven too.
Yes, I believe you are, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So the question is, what kind of a life path number seven are you? just saying you're at life path number 7, that's not enough,
Hmm.
right? How are you getting there? What do you need to learn so you can be the best 7 you can be? The 7 is what I call the root number, and commonly that's what people would call the life path number. I refer to it as a soul signature number
Mm,
because I
love
take it
that.
much deeper.
Okay, so for anyone listening who now is like, well, what is my number? Is there a quick way for them to figure that out?
The easiest way to do it is to, and the simplest form is to add your number straight across in your date of birth. Let's take an example of one, March 24th of 1980. Okay. So we're going to add 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 4 is 9, plus 1 is 10, plus 9 is 19, plus 8 is 27. So in this case, this person would be a 27-9, meaning that their sub lessons that are kind of driving the bus to the 9 are related to the 2 and the 7. Now,
Right.
it's possible that if we broke that down independently, it might come up as an entirely different set of sub lessons. But to get your root number,
Yeah.
just add your number straight across and you should
Okay,
be
great.
okay.
Because I think
Yeah.
that from there, then obviously your book is going to give them all the information they need about that number. And
Yeah.
that's where we get to go deep into understanding ourselves and
Mhm.
all of this. But I think that's a great place for somebody to start.
Yeah.
How is this different from, say, an Enneagram, where you get an Enneagram number, or, is it similar to a personality test, or what's the difference here?
Well, the theory behind numerology is that we believe that we've all had previous lifetimes and that within every lifetime we bring back with us a new soul's contract. So when we look at the date of birth and we do the calculations and we come up with the life path number or the soul signature number, it's a code that can be cracked and it tells us what we agreed to learn. Now, many people have some really, really difficult shit shows, for
Hmm.
lives. I mean,
Hmm.
that's just what it is. It can be very, very difficult. And the question might be, well, what the heck? Like, why would I have chosen this? Are you telling me I chose all this? Yeah, you did, right? Because it's about the lessons that we're intended to learn. So,
Hmm.
in a nutshell, this is the template, if you will, that you chose to bring with you based on what you felt. You reviewed your previous lifetime and you said, hey, in your case, my case, we were a little too codependent. Therefore, we brought in the number 1 to combat that,
Right,
right? We
right.
brought in the 6 because the 6 says, no, I'm not going to be super responsible for everybody's stuff all the time. I'm not going to measure my worth based on how responsible I can be,
Yeah.
right?
No, no, I think that helps because when I think of Enneagram, it's more of like a intellectual based personality, right? Like fill out the
Yeah.
form and here's your personality style. Whereas what I'm hearing
Yeah.
with what you're doing is like way deeper into, as you said, like soul signature.
Hmm.
This is far beyond just like a personality test.
Oh, 100%. And that brings up a very good point in that in my book, I only cover the date of birth. And I did that intentionally because that's where we start, right? But numerology encompasses looking at your birth name as well and your current name. And,
Oh.
I mean, we can go on and on and on about that. But in this particular book, I'm just helping you to identify why the heck are you here? What
Mm,
is it? We can take a look at some of your gifts and your talents and such, but, why am I here? What am I supposed to be learning? And why does
yeah.
life feel so weird and out of place and out of alignment? This is where it can be so good in relationships. When you're looking at your kids and you want to make sure that you're guiding them to a place where they're naturally going to be successful. I mean, that's the goal, right? You don't
Yeah.
want to, if you have a life path number child of 2, for example, these kids don't do well in huge, loud, noisy environments.
Mm,
You might be better off to take that child and put them in maybe a private school or get them tutoring or just really pay attention to the environment that they're learning in so
mm.
that they can embrace who they are. Asking them to stay in the crowded environment, that's not who they are, right?
Wow. Okay, that's just a whole other level you just opened up for us, right? Of like understand now
Yeah.
I want to know what my kids' numbers are. Like that is so cool. What a
Yeah.
different way to approach parenting
Oh,
from this, right? This deep
yeah.
understanding of them. And so, okay, before we get into anything more, can you just break down like numbers? Why are
Mhm.
numbers so significant in our life? And
Mhm.
in, our soul's journey, like what is it about numbers that holds so much insight?
Well, each number holds a unique vibration. And so we
Mm,
observe the numbers from 1 to 9. And I like to look at numerology as sort of like drag and drop, plug and play, because the number means the same, but it's interpreted differently depending on where you plug it into. So, for
okay.
example, the life path number or soul signature number is where our lessons are. So, if you come in as a life path number 1, you are learning how to be a leader, more original, more confident, that sort of thing, independent.
Hmm.
However, if it comes in as your expression number that comes from your full name on your birth certificate, that would imply you've already got that talent. So
Right.
once again, when you're looking at yourself or you're looking at your child and you're going, huh, they've got a one life path, or pardon me, one expression number, that would be a good indication to take that child in an arena where they could become a leader of some kind.
Okay. Right.
They're naturally going to be successful at it because that's what their gift is, but they may not know that unless you help push them in that direction, right?
Wow.
So, and so the 1 is a masculine energy. Okay. So it's go, go, go.
Hmm.
Whereas the 2 is a softer energy. It's a vibration that says, I have to be patient. I have to be diplomatic. I have to learn how to work with my sensitivities. I need to let things come to me rather than one that says I have to go after it.
Right.
Okay. So it's a, more of assertive energy, like a masculine energy, a feminine energy, a
Okay.
masculine energy, a feminine energy. And so from 1 to 9, each one holds basically a black and white template.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
hope that
that
makes
makes
sense.
sense. That's
Does
super
it?
helpful.
Okay.
So frequency or the energy of a number, the frequency that it holds.
Mhm.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. All right. I love it. Okay, let's talk about relationships because that's one thing that we really connected on was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
why does sometimes relationships feel so
Ah,
hard? How does this life path number influence relationships?
the life path number is going to show where the relationship is going to flow and where the relationship might not flow. An example would be my first marriage, right? My ex-husband is a 3. Okay, so that's somebody who's noisy all the time, who's very, likes to talk, is a little on the loud side, is very creative, very animated, has a great sense of humor. It's just, but to me, it was just like, God bless him, he's a great guy, but it was just a lot of noise. Okay,
Sure.
and at the
Yeah.
time, like I was 20 years old, at the time, I didn't understand that this 7 just couldn't cope.
Right.
I just couldn't, it just completely exhausted me
Right.
to be in the company of a 3 all the time. Because the
Mm.
7 likes quiet, likes solitude, likes to be reflective and introspective and needs their own space. We need
Mm-hmm.
our woman caves, right?
Hmm. I hear you.
Yeah, I know. Another example of that would be in my second marriage, I married a 7, okay? But he's a 25/7 and I am a 16/7. So the 25, the 2 and the 5, those sub lessons, the 2 says, I need partnership. I need to know you're around. When I take a nap, I want to know you're in the house.
Okay.
Okay. The 5 says, I have to learn how to be a little bit more flexible, adaptable, and resilient in the face of change. I have to learn how to manage potential for addiction, right? For me, my 1 and the 6, the 1 says, I don't need you in the house when I'm taking a nap. I'm good,
Hmm.
right? I'm
Hmm.
all right by myself. His 2 said, but I'm not okay by myself. Right there.
Right, right.
And then his 5 says, I've got to learn how to be a little bit more flexible and adaptable. My 6 said, I got to learn how not to be so responsible for all your shit.
What you just unpacked is so interesting because it speaks to common relationship
Yeah.
issues. Opposites attract, as we always say, right? But we end up with somebody who is triggering all of our stuff.
Hmm.
We're triggering all of their stuff, and then I think the question becomes, is this just opportunities for us both to grow, or are we truly incompatible? And how do we know the difference?
Something I learned, and only in the last few years, is that with this whole concept of a soul's contract, I mean, you can marry somebody that is really difficult, maybe a narcissist, maybe somebody who's abusive or whatever. And the question might be, what the heck? All right, so it's a soul's agreement, but why would I have chosen that? So the idea is that you may have gone to that person on soul level and said, hey, I've never lived with a narcissist before. That's part of my journey. I need to experience that. Experience that. Do you love me enough to hold that space and that position for me so I can work it through in this lifetime?
Hmm.
Okay. Or the other way around. He could have come to you to say, hey, I have never been a narcissist before. I need to work that through. I need to feel what that's all about. So, do you love me enough to hold that position for me, that space for me, so I can work it out?
Mm,
And it's a bit, I know, I get it. It's a lot to wrap your head around, but when you do wrap your head around it, then it becomes, so it's not so much about you anymore. It's not so personal because you've agreed to hold space. And I look at that. I chose my dad. My dad was an alcoholic. I know that I asked him to be that. Who would ask for that, right? It doesn't make
yeah.
sense on a human level, but on a
Yeah.
soul level, it does.
Yeah. Okay. I'm imagining right now that that's going to trigger a lot of listeners because
Mhm.
there's a lot of talk about this, I think, where it's like, oh, so that means that I'm to blame or I'm responsible and I chose this shitty situation. And I know that's not what you're saying.
No, not at all.
So can you just speak to that?
It's an agreement. The concept is that there is a menu that exists, okay? And prior to our incarnation, we look at this menu, and on the menu is absolutely everything you can possibly experience in any given lifetime. Okay, so that could be thousands of lifetimes. The goal is to go through enough lifetimes so that everything on this menu is checked off. And that can include being married to a narcissist or being abused or being neglected or whatever. And the reason why we choose these things is so eventually once that whole menu of good things and bad things are all checked off, you get to ascend. Okay, you get to ascend and you don't have to come back to earth school anymore because you got
Hmm.
all the lessons. The reason we do that is so that we can have complete empathy for everyone, the
Hmm.
bad guys included, right?
Hmm.
If we have not walked in their shoes, we can't be empathetic. And I know this is a big hot topic. I
It
understand
is.
that. And
Yeah.
I know it's gonna, as I say, and I understand it will trigger a few people for sure. I can see people saying, "Well, are you kidding me? I would never have chosen this." But remember, you're thinking that in your human mind. You
Right.
can't possibly understand why you would have chosen such a difficult circumstance because you made it on a soul level,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And there are contracts that exist. Sometimes we love a person enough to fulfill that. My father loved me enough to be that unavailable alcoholic father because I asked him to be that. It was on my menu. I had to check it off. I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I think that yeah, if we can keep an open mind and open to the curiosity
That's it.
of what you're
Curiosity.
saying, right?
Yes.
Then there's opportunity here. And that's what I always say, right? It's like your brain is it might be arguing with you as you're listening to this conversation, but I would say just yeah, hold it in curiosity instead of letting your brain decide, "Oh, this is BS," because that's what I've experienced in my life is
Yeah.
when I can be curious, I see the lesson. And I will say as well, in my two marriages and divorces, I did have a strong sense at the end of both marriages that we had fulfilled something together.
Right.
And
Yes.
as much as when you're in it, you don't necessarily see that or feel that. You're like, get me out of this, you know. But
Yeah.
now, and actually my second ex-husband and I have had this conversation where we can say, like, you were the perfect person I needed in order
Hmm.
for me to work through this thing in my life.
Absolutely.
And once that was completed, we both knew that that relationship came to a natural end. And as much as it was painful for both of us, I can sit here now and go, it was exactly what I needed at that time. And it actually changed the entire trajectory of my life. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if I hadn't gone through that. So that
Right.
would be, my sort of experience of this is on an intuitive level, I do understand that, I think. And I think that that is our work potentially is to learn how to get out of the logical mind or the subconscious programs that
Mhm.
say, you would never do this, you would never ask for this. And on some level, that's true, right? But you're saying, like,
Mhm.
this is a different conversation. This is a soul conversation. And how are we at getting there?
Yeah.
How are we at connecting to our soul?
Yeah, that's it. And the thing is, we have to trust that the choice that we made was exactly the divine choice, for us. But at the end of the day, Val, we have the opportunity to choose how we respond to it. And
Exactly.
that is what sets you free. And when we
Hmm.
start examining it this way, we talk about, soul numbers coming together and the challenges that they bring. And it's like the WTF moment, like, what the
Hmm.
heck? I would never have chosen this. If you can accept that, yeah, you did, you did choose it, but you also get to choose how you respond to it. Now, you can choose to be a victim, and that's your choice. I'm not going to judge you for your choice. You can choose that, right? But if you choose make that choice, where do you move from that? If you keep pointing the fingers back at the person saying, well, you make me feel this way, or you did this to me, or whatever, and that's it. It's
Hmm.
over. Like there's no
Hmm.
place to move. But when you can finally say, you know what? Okay, this is kind of crappy. I'm not very happy here. Um, but I chose this. Therefore, I get to, I can choose to be angry right now. But I'm also saying at the same time, you know what? I can choose to be at peace when I'm ready. Right?
Yeah,
So we never have to be a victim of the choices that we've made, I guess is what I'm saying. And
totally.
sometimes when we look at these numbers, sometimes they're just like, I can look at a chart and go, are you kidding me? Seriously? You chose this? Right? And
Yeah.
that is what my book is all about. It's seeing people through a different lens,
Mm,
understanding that somebody who's a four is somebody who is going to be likely very committed to their work, very focused, very driven, very inflexible. They're four posts in the ground.
mm,
The five is going to have trouble with that because they're footloose and fancy free, and they want
right.
change and whatnot. But the four is good for the five because the five needs to learn from the four and to be more, disciplined, because freedom comes from discipline. But also, the four is learning from the five how to be a bit more flexible.
Sure.
So even though they're contradictory numbers, if you understand the numbers, you can make any relationship work.
Well, I love that because everything that you're saying is empowering. This is the message I'm hearing. It's like the empowerment of awareness and
Yes.
understanding, right? And of
Yep.
ourself and others. And so, and to your point about being a victim, I mean, I lived as in the victim place for decades.
Oh, love the t-shirt.
Like
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
classic, like, why me? And this is happening to me. And it sucked. And when I learned how to get out of that and get into my own power, it changed everything. And so, think to your point too, right? It's like, okay, yeah, I can either look back and see that as like from a victim point of like, okay, this shouldn't have happened and why did it happen and it's not fair, which, hey, all of that could be true. But that
Mhm.
perspective doesn't serve you if you want to move into more power in your life. And so this insight, what I'm hearing, is really helping to shift us into that empowered perspective of like, okay, this is the deal. What is my work here? And what do I need to do in order to evolve, as you said, and to go to those higher levels? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, I mean, and if the idea is that we have to go through some really crappy things in our lives so that we can finally ascend, because we have all the t-shirts in every color, right? My stepson who passed away in January last year sent me many, many messages from the other side. And one of the messages he sent me was, before you look at somebody in judgment, remember, you're going to be that person someday. It's on the menu, right?
Mm,
If you haven't already been in a previous lifetime. So there is no point in judging somebody because that's not going to help you to ascend any. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So that's where I feel the book really was driving me to help people to see each other in a different light. You
Yeah.
are sitting next to somebody in a cubicle in your office and you're like, "Oh my God, like why do I have to work with this person?" If you knew their numerology, just their soul, their soul signature number, if that's all you knew, you'd know how to work with them better.
Like, hey, Bob, what's your birth date?
Right.
Pulling out the book. Oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah. Oh, listen, when I used to work in the corporate world, I had a little book. And as soon as I started working somewhere, I'd be like, I'm taking down everybody's birth dates because I think it's important for, office morale that we have birthday cakes on your birthday. What's your birthday?
Yeah. And then Anne's
So,
over there going, oh, you're a
oh,
three.
absolutely. And that's what helped to create office dynamics. I used to work for my husband, and he wasn't my husband at the time. We weren't even in a relationship, but he was hiring somebody new. And I said, please, dear God, give me the man's date of birth because we were a very small, very cohesive team in our office. And I didn't want somebody coming in to blow that up. And he didn't confer with me. And he brought in a guy that was the biggest narcissist I've ever met. And he was so horrible to me. But he's also the person I'm so grateful for because he pushed me so hard that that's why I'm sitting in this seat today.
Mm,
I finally found the courage. Remember that one says we
mm-hmm,
don't have the courage. He
mm-hmm,
pushed my buttons so hard I found the courage. So I now look at this guy that was the meanest son of a bitch ever.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Now I look at him and go, you know what? You're the greatest gift. And
Wow.
I know who you are, right?
Wow.
I
I
know
mean, I
who
love
you
that
are.
story because we're all about, I think, well, especially narcissist is such a trendy thing to throw around now, and we're all
Yeah.
about like hating on the narcissist. And to your point, right? It's like sometimes those people that are the most difficult in our life give us the greatest gift.
Oh, I couldn't be more grateful. I saw
Yeah.
him not that long ago, and I mean he just made my life a living hell. It was
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah.
The day I finally went, okay, there's a lesson in this. What is it? And if he'd made my life warm and fuzzy, and if he'd made my life comfortable in that workplace, I promise you my one would not have kicked in.
There
I
you
would have
go.
stayed very dependent. I would have
Yeah.
stayed small. But this
Well,
guy pushed me to go
yeah, I
big.
mean, okay. I like to think of growth, as like, okay, adversity brings growth, challenges bring growth. It's hard to grow when things are so easy.
Yeah.
Here's a random question. So if you look at someone, I'm thinking of someone that I know, they have
Okay.
had an easy life. Like literally everything has just been smooth sailing. I've known this person for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Really very few challenges. Now, what's the deal with that? Why is that person getting that life?
Well, I mean, they may have just said, I'm taking a break. I'm just taking a time out this time around,
This is my
But the other,
vacation life.
yeah, that's my vacation life. But what I got from that when you said that was underneath it, I'll bet you that they wish they had more challenges. I bet you
Mm,
there's a bit of inertia there. They're
mm,
not feeling really fulfilled. It looks all good from the outside,
hmm
but inside, I'll bet you they've got their struggles that you're just not seeing.
mm. All right. Don't judge a book by the cover. I hear you.
It's true. Yeah.
It's
So,
fascinating,
mhm,
and it's fascinating because it gives us insight in a different way, which I really love because we can
mhm.
talk about communication skills all day long. But
Yep.
if you're
Yep.
married to somebody, let's say, who, as you said, has a life path number that is bringing challenges, then those communication skills, I'm guessing, are only going to take you so far.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. When I do a chart for somebody, I also do a bit of a grid. And people who have the numbers 3, 6, and 9 in their date of birth are what we would call the intellects. Okay. So I know when I see that on a chart, I'm looking at somebody that just does not have time for superficial conversations. They
Hmm
can't talk about the weather for very long.
hmm
So they have to have their equal. They have to have somebody who's going to challenge them intellectually. Otherwise, it's going to be difficult. When I see somebody who has 4 1s in their date of birth, I know that that's a person who doesn't feel like this is even their planet. They're not from here. They don't get people. People don't get them. And they hide behind a smile, like everything's fine, everything's cool, and they're miserable. They're really,
hmm
because they feel very isolated and disconnected from people, and it takes a lot for them to find their person.
hmm
So when they have a breakup, they take it really, really hard because
hmm
they don't invest in people unless they really feel comfortable to do so. So there's all kinds of things that we look at.
Thank you for taking us on this journey. Honestly, I feel as though you've helped us to really wrestle with some of these concepts,
Hmm.
get a deeper level of understanding and awareness, and then open to the possibility. That's my sense of what this conversation has been.
Sure.
So thank you for being willing to, stay with those hard questions because, I think that's what we need is somebody who can hold this and say, yeah, like bring it on. Let's talk about it. Let's get into it. And you're willing to say what I think needs to be said in order for us to really get the concept and the power. This isn't just about like, mood rings and what's your sign. It's so deep.
And it's so simple. Like it really is. Once you understand the energy of the numbers from 1 to 9, like that, if that's the only thing I can teach you, like it's
Yeah.
so much more than what you might have had, and it
Yeah.
will help you to understand Why does my husband not get along with our daughter? Why does he get
Mm,
along with our son? And taking it a little step further, we can also talk about, why all of the sudden are we at odds? And that could
mm,
simply be a cycle that is happening, which is a personal year cycle. And
wow.
these are very, very simple things. I teach it all in the book, but there's very, very simple things in there that will just help to open your eyes to what you're dealing with. And you might be feeling like your relationship is over, and maybe it is, but maybe it's just a cycle. Or
Yeah.
maybe it's just you just need a little bit more clarity as to who they are and who you are,
Mm, wow.
right?
Just
So,
that is like makes me excited to feel like, oh, like I'm thinking about my kids and like, wow, if I knew that information, how different would that be for me as far as how I'm seeing them? So definitely I'm digging into that when I get into your book. But like, all right, tell us again the name of your book and where we can get it.
so my book is Soul Signature Numerology. The book is broken down into talking about the nine various numbers that we look at and what the lessons are. There's a section in here in page 221. There's a section here that breaks it down. So, for example, Val, you're a seven, and let's say your partner is an eight. You just go to the center of the book and it goes seven and eight. This is what it means. These are your
Oh,
challenges and these are your gifts. For every single life path combination you could possibly have, it's in there, right?
wow.
And there's also more available because there's a link in there that you can click on that will take you to all kinds of downloadable worksheets and templates and cheat sheets. And it'll get you on a mailing list that lets you know when I'm teaching more classes. And it's very specific, it's very exclusive just to the readers.
Okay.
And it's available on Amazon. It'll be available on Indigo very soon. But right now you can definitely pick it up on Amazon or on my website,
Yeah.
annperrynumerology.com.
Perfect. I will put all those links in the show notes. So thank you for hanging out and having this really beautiful and elevating and expansive conversation with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Val. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Anne. And thank you everyone for being here. We will see you next time. Bye.